For years, everyone thought Verizon had the best network, because they did. But now the best mobile network in the U.S. is T-Mobile. T-Mobile's network has the most advanced 5G, with more towers, and their signal reaches further than ever. So you can text and Insta Talk and say, "You won't believe where I am."
T-Mobile has the best mobile network in the U.S. based on analysis by Ookla of speed test intelligence data 1H 2025. See T-Mobile.com/network.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. PrizePicks takes your weekend to a new level. We're talking easy stuff. You know what you're doing. More or less, like Saquon Barkley, more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. Games with Patrick Mahomes, more or less than 2.5 passing touchdowns. You know what we're talking about. We're playing fantasy. We're playing DFS. Jump in the PrizePicks app. You will not regret it. It makes the weekend so much more fun, and it's really easy to do. Just download the PrizePicks app today and use code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right.
To the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. Tuesday, November 18th here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew, #1 Cowboys fan Betz.
I love this team. Love them. Always have, always will. Lifelong Cowboys fan since Saturday evening when we locked in our Survivor pick. But ever since then, I mean, this is my team. Dude, it was a rocky start.
Oh, terrible.
Like when they turned on, the broadcast comes on and they have the opening drive and all of a sudden you look up and CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens are standing on the sideline. The feeling I got, I was like, oh dear, we're in trouble. I don't know. Do you think the boys were out till 2, 3 a.m. hitting the slots or blackjack table or something out there, or what was going on?
That's definitely part of the equation that we did not factor in.
No.
That the boys would be in Vegas, they'd have an extra day just to kind of, and Schottenheimer's like, hey, we were on bye, boys, have fun. And so yeah, the first 2 drives were terrible in that Cowboys game. Just absolutely terrible. But things turned. Pickens was awesome. It was just cool to see, the process said this was the team to pick. But honestly, not really many people went with the Cowboys in Survivor, so I felt like we were a little bit on an island. But yeah, your Eagles do play them this week, so you still going to be repping the star, man?
I'll rep them till Saturday evening. A 1-week fandom, and then once we get to Sunday. Lane Johnson, big injury for the Eagles.
It is huge.
Could matter against this rejuvenated, I'll say, Cowboys pass rush. And that's one of the reasons we landed on Dallas is hey, yes, they've been, a turnstile basically all season at defense, but they got back a starting safety, a starting linebacker. They made the trade for Quinnen Williams, and they were actually top 10 in pressure rate before those moves. And we were like, you know what? Geno under pressure this year has been a disaster. They down the offensive linemen. What if the defensive additions for Dallas matter? And they still move the ball pretty effectively. The Raiders did it at certain parts of the game. So I don't think this is going to be a top 10 unit moving forward, but I think the Dallas defense is going to be surprising some people down the stretch is how I would put it. But yeah, we'll see. Eagles, the offense looks terrible. Quite frankly, the offense looks inept. So it's fine out here in Philly. We're fine. Nothing's the matter, Kyle. It's all good. Yeah, we'll see. Should be a big game this Sunday.
Did you know? I look at Philly and I look at the way that they've been playing the entire year, and I go, this team right now is a #1 seed. It just makes it when I look at their offensive metrics, I go, if I would have told you this before the season that Saquon would have been an absolute bust, and he's been fine, but for fantasy, he's been not great. That A.J. Brown, bust. That you would have been super disappointed. You wouldn't have thought you guys would have been the #1 seed.
It's so funny, man. #1 seed, tons of wins, defense is playing great. yeah, team success. You would think Saquon Barkley in these positive game scripts is going to have an awesome season. The offense just, since the bye week, they are bottom 3 in EPA and success rate. The defense is top 3 in both of those metrics. So it's just not sustainable. We'll see if they can turn it around. But yeah, they're looking quite terrible. I also was a little shooketh yesterday. I don't know if you know who Derek Gunn is. He's like a Philly reporter, longtime guy in the area.
I heard a little bit about this in the bushes.
Yeah, he was kind of coming out. He was on a different podcast, and he was saying, like, internally, some people are not thrilled with what's going on with the quarterback position, obviously, i.e. Jalen Hurts. And he came out as far as to say he feels like this is almost like a Carson Wentz 2.0 situation where it's like there's so many different, cooks in the kitchen and people are being pulled in different directions. So what a great time to be entering that decision point for the Eagles when the playoffs are on the horizon and you're the 1 seed. Like, it's a great time to have, internal issues. So it's wonderful, Kyle. It's a wonderful time to be a Philly sports fan.
On this episode, we will get to recap this past week, which, I need to be transparent, was not great for me in DFS. In fact, it's one of the worst weeks I've had in a long time. And I can share some of that sadness with you if you had a bad week. But we also had some people that won really, really big. Betz, I know that you had a good Monday night as well. You had a good week in cash, so you can share some of those victories. But, I'm more of a survivor guy these days. That's like kind of like my thing.
I mean, you are the sides and totals
myself.
expert on the show.
It is really nice when you have a bunch of different formats. So, like, you have your best ball that you check in on right now. I have a couple teams that are doing really, really well. Even one that we did on this podcast, Betz, crushing it, dude. First place in that one.
Oh, in the best ball one we did here,
Yeah.
the live draft?
I couldn't remember what my team was.
I was going to say, last time I looked, I think I was like 4th or 5th, so not great.
But it is nice to be able to look at the different formats you have. And right now, Survivor is definitely a thing that's been going quite well. Been navigating the field. It feels like I'm playing dodgeball, and I would consider myself, I was a very, very good dodgeball player. I was captain of our college intramural dodgeball team.
No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. And what happens in dodgeball, though, is like really quickly, you see people run out to the front, and you're like, that dude's getting out. That dude has no idea what he's doing. And we're kind of in the back, waiting our turns, kind of scheming. And now it's down to, not a ton of teams in the tournament that we're playing for Survivor. And now it just comes down to like what type of formation are you going to use. So I had formations that our team used in dodgeball. I won't share them now because they were pretty great, but that's where we're at. So I'm enjoying Survivor. I'm enjoying a lot of what we're going to do. If you want all of our picks, dfspass.com. Use the promo code DFSPod for DraftKings, FanDuel, or Optimizer, everything else we have. But let's rewind.
Weekly Rewind.
One of the things that we get to do when we get to reflect about our performance in DFS is we get to go, man, I was so smart if I got this right. And then when I get things wrong, man, I just feel like the biggest dum-dum in the world. I'm pretty sure on this podcast last Friday, I spelled out all the reasons why J.J. McCarthy makes me cringe inside. And I played him. At the last minute, I pivoted from Jacoby Brissett to J.J. McCarthy in cash. Because, as they said, the projections looked good. And I hated myself for it. It was so painful to play J.J. McCarthy this past week. 8 points feels laughable. I feel like he got -8.
It was a terrible performance. We have basically like a quarter of good football from J.J. McCarthy since he's been under center. And obviously, it's a small sample, but the floor is scary low. And obviously, you saw that this past Sunday. Yeah, it was, I think, a brutal run out the way it went if you played 9, a.k.a. J.J. McCarthy, and then didn't play Jacoby because, look, in DFS, like, wild stuff happens that you can't really predict. Like, we all thought, okay, yeah, Jacoby's, what was he, 4,900 on DraftKings. Get me those 15, 16 points, and like, let's move on. Nobody could have predicted he would set the NFL record for completions in a single game, completing 47 passes. So obviously you had to have him for the most part. And then, from there in cash, I thought the biggest decision points were like, do you jam CMC and like completely punt wide receiver, which I know some people that played Jacoby, Greg Dortch, and Michael Wilson with Trey McBride. And it's like,
That's That's wild.
That's terrifying.
I played Dortch, McBride, and obviously didn't play the two that really went off.
Yeah, and that's tough. Like, and it wasn't great down there. Like, I was looking for pivots in that area to try to jam CMC. I ended up playing in cash Josh Palmer once we got the Keon Coleman ruled out, healthy and active news. And I was like, whatever, give me 5 or 6 points, and I'll pair him with Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, and jam Jamar Chase and CMC. And it worked out overall. Had a good week in cash, but the Arizona stuff's wild, and that's kind of what you needed to like win tournaments was the Jacoby doubles and triples. I went for the fade on Michael Wilson in tournaments. Just said, hey, we have a long history of this guy in the NFL. He has not been great. If he's going to be 20, 30, in my small field contest, he was 40% rostered. I will, just kind of fade him and hope for the best. Obviously, you needed him. And I was thinking about this after the fact, and I think it's a good discussion point maybe like for the offseason. When we evaluate players who have struggled in the NFL, I think most of the time, over a big enough sample, it will be accurate. However, the elephant in the room is like, is this a Kyler Murray issue? Like, because Jacoby Brissett is elevating Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. Trey McBride is literally playing at an all-pro level,
Michael Wilson had more receiving yards than Larry Fitzgerald ever had in a game in his career.
I mean, Jacoby might be him, or Kyler is just not it. And that's kind of where I'm leaning, is like Kyler is the issue. But regardless, like, Michael Wilson chalk smashing was tough if you didn't have him. But overall, it was a good week I know for subscribers, and I had a good week in cash. It was one of those slates that was, again, an old school slate. Spend down a quarterback, jam in Trey McBride and kind of put the pieces around it. I did think one of the best tournament plays on the slate was Bijan Robinson, even before, obviously, the result. Because if you think about like the way rosters were built, it was like the mid-tier running backs, jam one of the studs of JSN or Jamar Chase and Trey McBride, and then kind of like fill it out from there. I decided to play in small field. I'm going to not play the expensive wide receivers. I'm going to play both the stud running backs and kind of follow the cash build, but like play different pieces around it. So I had a nice week in GPPs as well. But yeah, it was a tricky slate. When the cash teams are like what you needed in tournaments and you don't play that type of stuff, it's hard to have success.
Yeah, I got buried in tournaments. I played some Chargers stacks. I don't know if you saw, Bud, but the Chargers decided not to show up at all this week. So those teams were dead on arrival. I did play a lot of Josh Allen, which looks really good. I didn't have the combination in other spots, but I kind of deduced like, hey, even if I don't know where the ball is going, like I'm sorry, I didn't play Tyrell Shavers. He was in my player pool. That's my mistake. But like, I played him with Josh Palmer in a couple of spots, and that in itself like helped me like get in a spot where I need it. But I didn't play any Michael Wilson because Michael Wilson is a player I've always had a bias against. He's never earned targets in his entire career. I think it's like 13% targets per outrun.
Yeah.
And I was so locked in on the slot matchup that I played McBride. I played a ton of Dortch, and they were both great, but Wilson was somebody that I just didn't have enough. So it was an interesting GPP slate, because if you just went all in on that game and you just said, I'm playing Jacoby, playing 3 Cardinals, I'm playing CMC, I'm playing Kittle, going 12 personnel, you basically could get there, which is wild. When we talked about that game, we talked about that in overstacking that game. So any other thoughts on the slate?
Nothing crazy, nothing specific. I did just want to give a quick shout out to our guy Sean Tucker. Oh baby.
Oh man.
What a game.
If my worst week, if that was the cost with Sean Tucker going off, it's okay. I'm okay.
You did rate him up as a dart throw in best plays.
Did I?
I saw that. Yes. I didn't have the stones to do it because I was like, there's such a big opportunity cost at not playing one of these other guys. But Sean Tucker, man, those round 18, 19, 20 best ball shares. Oh, baby. That was fun. The Bills' run defense, truly optional.
It was nice. And the sad part is like he's going to go right back to just being third string.
I don't know. I could see them not like giving him the job, obviously, but like him mixing in more than you realize until Bucky's like truly back to 100%. Bucky hasn't played in a month and a half, so I don't think they're just going to put Bucky in and give him 20 touches.
Dude, he had his first touchdown run. Sean Tucker, dude, had some juice.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to see. Yeah, he's great.
Money, 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 money.
We did have a lot of winners, especially on Monday night, and I'll let you read off some of those. But yeah, it was just nice to see on a weekend where things just did not go right for me. And DFS didn't go right. My team, my home league, that's been in first place, just killing everybody in points. I'm playing the last place team. Everything that can go wrong went wrong on that team, and I somehow lost. So it was a tough week. My Falcons decided, you don't need to protect the nest. You know what? You don't really need to do that anymore.
Dude, the Falcons they're interesting. Now we lose Penix, Drake London probably for a couple of weeks here. The good news is they have a top 10 pick.
I know, and what's crazy is that we know that Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson will be able to coach up that player on the Rams next year when they go back home with their tails tucked between their legs because they're fired.
Dude, the Rams may win the Super Bowl and also pick like 6th.
That's cool.
But yeah, it was an awesome week, especially last night. If you played Monday Night Showdown, Chris Cash's article on the site was awesome. Huge on Pickens, which was very fun. I know a lot of people played Captain Pickens. I had a Captain Pickens team that did very, very well. But we had
Captain Pickens.
Captain
Sounds
Pickens,
cool.
Captain George. Him and CD, the bad boys on the sideline, came through for everybody. We had Grizz in Discord split first in the $3 20 entry max on DraftKings for almost $1,800. Very fun there. We had a couple other people win small field contests. I know Chris had a nice night on FanDuel. Came away with a $1,200 score. Just a lot of people in there having a lot of success. So very fun to see, and we love that. We love when you guys read our content, consume our content, and do well. It makes us feel great, and we really appreciate you guys. So awesome night last night, I know, for a lot of people. And then we also had people have a nice week in cash on the main slate as well.
Yeah. If you want all those picks, once again, dfspass.com. Let's take a quick break, and then we will look ahead to week 12.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
'Tis the season of gifting and halls to deck, and the Who's and Who Newville were in love with new tech. Where can we find Sonos and Samsung and Nintendo, they shouted. Would they find it in one place? This they questioned and doubted. When suddenly a Who yelled, Walmart's the place to start! And each Who added headphones, TVs, and games to their carts. With Walmart, their shopping was done in a flurry. They cried out, "Who knew?" and ordered their gifts in a hurry. Shop the latest tech gifts in the Walmart app.
State of the main slate.
For week 12, we have a 11-game slate in front of us. All the international games are gone. Sayonara. Shout out, by the way, to one of our writers, Paul Marney, who was there at the game in Madrid as a Dolphins fan. It's pretty cool experience if you're across the pond and you get to then see your team overseas. So anyway, shout out to Paul. He's been a long-time Footballers listener and a writer the last couple of years. But for this week, there's a healthy amount of games sitting around that 50 total. And right now I'm seeing 4 that are at 49.5. The highest total of the week right now is the Colts coming off the bye at the Chiefs. It's 50.5. The Chiefs are 3-point home favorites. The Chiefs are the team, I don't know if you guys know this, that are currently not in the playoffs. Okay, they're just not a playoff team. That's just not who they are.
Do you remember about a month ago we decided to take the Chiefs to win the division?
Oh, yeah.
Whoopsies. We'll see. I think they still have a pretty
I believe
good...
you called that a lock, right?
Obviously, everything Kyle and gambling is a lock. It's not gambling when you know you're going to win. That's a dead ticket, by the way. Unfortunately, the next gen stats like playoff predictor that they still have them as a favorite to make the playoffs. Obviously, it would be as a wild card, but yeah, it's kind of staggering to see the Panthers at 6-5, the Jaguars ahead of them with a better record, and then the Chiefs and Ravens just sitting there at 5-5 each. Do you know the Tiger Woods and John Daly meme? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where they're on the practice screen together, and obviously Daly doesn't care, wears funny clothes, obviously decides to do off the course activities, and Tiger is like, like very serious about it. Somebody posted that on Twitter this week where it was like the Chiefs logo of Tiger and then the Panthers logo of John Daly. And it was like, well, look at this. I thought that was funny. But yeah, man, the Chiefs, they need to win. So this is a huge game against the Colts.
Yeah, so the highest total games of the week is the Colts and Chiefs at 50.5. Then we have New England at Cincinnati, 49.5. The Giants at Detroit's 49.5. And then your Eagles travel to Jerry's World. And that game is hovering around the 50-point mark. I mean, this Cowboys team, talk about momentum, talk about the swagger. I mean, if it was me right now, I feel like Cowboys at home is just an easy cover. I mean, just go ahead, run to your local bookie, and just put it in right now.
Only 3.5 points?
Yep.
The line does feel fishy, which means it's probably right. I like the under in that spot, personally, with how the Eagles offense has played and how their defense has played. And we talked about the Cowboys defense being better than, the season-long metrics will tell you. So if that's going to be really popular, which I could see it being because A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are so cheap on DraftKings in particular, I might be underweight that. We'll see.
All right, the teams that have the highest implied total for Week 12, and I'm interested to talk about this game later. The Lions are currently at 30 points at home in a dome. Should be really, really good. Then the Ravens and Patriots are at 29. The Seahawks at 27. The Chiefs at 26.8. And then your Eagles at 26.5. Before we get into the most popular games, I really think that when you look at slates and you look at teams that could just go all in and score 35, 40 points, the Lions stand out to me early in the week. It's like, what if they just press on the gas? I know that they've had some injuries. Laporta just went on IR, but you're kind of seeing that offense evolve into what it's supposed to be, especially Jameson Williams. I'm highlighting him this week on the Dynasty podcast. And I just feel like the Lions are at a spot where like things didn't go super well for Amon-Ra this past week. And they've had some games where you think they should totally win. But I still think this is a good spot for them.
For the Lions?
Yeah, for the Lions.
Oh, this is like classic Dan Campbell. Let's just show you kind of what we can do. Where we talked about this against the Commanders a couple weeks ago, right? Where they came off a loss. Offense didn't look great. They will run it up on the Giants. So again, they're back home, 30 points. I like the over on that. And then you think about kind of just like when you see a team on, especially on an island game, and they're like at their worst, right? Like Jared Goff was just kind of going through it, against the Eagles pass rush. Now you get the Giants at home. Like I feel like the Lions are going to be heard from on this slate. So early in the week, I'm approaching them very similar to how we approached them against the Commanders a couple weeks ago. I think they're going to run it up here.
All right, in terms of most popular games, I did circle the Eagles at Dallas because Dallas games this year, we've kind of been chasing them. They've averaged 58.9 combined points per game. Let me give you just a little context for that. So that means Dallas and whoever they're playing, almost 60 points per game. Their games are on pace for 1,001 combined points scored. That's the most in any 17-game season. That's what it would be, okay? I went back to all the way to like the year 2000, okay? The Rams, remember the greatest show on turf, Rams with Kurt Warner?
Mm-hmm.
And the Peyton Manning 2013 Broncos, so just an unstoppable team. The 2018 Chiefs, those are the only teams in that realm of Cowboys games, okay? So basically like vintage Mahomes, Hall of Fame Kurt Warner, Hall of Fame Peyton Manning. Those are the games that have scored the most points over the last 25 years. That's kind of where we're at with Cowboys games right now. And I know the defense looked a lot better, but I still think this is a really good spot. The stacks are a little bit expensive if you want to go that route, like the players. Now, the Eagles wide receivers are cheaper. George Pickens is cheaper than he needs to be. So there is some value there, but overall, I still think it's a game that you can attack with.
Yeah, I mentioned like, for me, I think I'm probably going to let roster percentage kind of dictate how I handle it. If everybody just assumes like this is the game, there's paths where it doesn't work out, but certainly like I see a world where it does because it's in a dome. And, if you zoom out on the Eagles offense, they have the capacity to put up big games. They just haven't recently. So I'm going to let roster percentage kind of dictate how I handle it. But yeah, it's an exciting matchup for sure. I'm going to throw out for the most popular game, New England and Cincy, because we have a New England offense that is rolling. We'll see on Ramondre Stevenson and Kayshon Boutte, but Drake May is in play this week. Obviously, you can stack him up, and if Ramondre is out, Travion will be very, very popular given the matchup. And then on the other side, because Jamar Chase is suspended, we'll see if he gets his appeal or not, but he is suspended. And because of that, we get, opening up so much opportunity, whether you wanted to play a cheap tight end or Yoshi Voss or obviously T. Higgins is in play. It just makes it so easy to stack the scheme up. So I think that won't be very popular. Obviously, the market is expecting New England to have a ton of success in this spot.
I mean, did you see Drake May's salary?
Yes. Quarterback 1 on DraftKings. I think he's QB3 on FanDuel, if I'm not mistaken.
I felt like, and maybe you guys have this relationship, you and Drake, but I felt like a proud father that I could just look at him and be like, look, who would have thought, It's
Look
the
at how
Paul
far he's
Rudd meme,
come.
like, yeah, man, it's nice to just see a player that goes from, oh, I think he could have a good year to, oh, the entire world sees him. He's like our son. He's like a son to us. I'm his dad.
I'm excited to see what he does in like legit matchups. Now, then they played the Bucks. That was a huge win, obviously. But like, and this was part of the analysis coming into the season for best ball was like, dude, the schedule is an absolute joke. So I'm really excited to see what happens down the stretch when it gets a little bit tougher and in the playoffs. But obviously, this is not that week with the Bengals on tap. Trey Hendrickson, they already announced, is going to be doubtful this week, and they lost Cam Taylor-Britt for the season last week as well, one of their starting corners. So, yikes.
So, in terms of sneaky games, I talked earlier about Detroit onslaught. I do think the Giants are going to have to change their approach. I don't know if you saw their pass rate over expectation. It was negative 18% last week. It was like the lowest of any team the entire year. They basically said, Jameis, we're going to try to keep things close with Tracy and Singletary, who actually played pretty well as like a complementary pair. Both of these teams, Detroit and New York, the Giants, are top 10 in combined points per game. So their games have produced, fairly high scoring games. I think there is a sneaky way here where if you stack up the Detroit side, you could find a path for a Giants player as a bringback. So I think it's a sneaky game on the slate.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's no way they're going to be able to replicate that pass rate this week. Like if they're behind, they're going to have to throw. So I like that call quite a bit this week. I really hope they get Darius Slayton back. I feel like he kind of matters to like open it up for Jameis, but we'll see. I also think Jacksonville and Arizona is kind of sneaky again. It's another dome game at Arizona. Jacoby's price is still very affordable. It only went up to $5,300. And then you get Jacksonville, who's been this season better against the run and kind of invites opponents to throw. So Jacoby has had no issue doing that. It kind of plays right into their strength. And then you look at these two teams, they are number 1 and number 2 on the season in combined plays per game. So I think we could see a lot of play volume here and two defenses that they're kind of inconsistent. I wouldn't say they're bad, but like Arizona has had issues recently, and Jacksonville will kind of have, a terrible week against the Raiders and then all of a sudden hold the Chargers to nothing. So they're kind of inconsistent, but I could see a path where this one goes off.
In terms of games that I want to be underweight on, the Raiders and the Browns play each other. I almost could just end my sentence there and just say, it's not very good. Browns games. So I was doing a little research on the Browns because surprisingly, their games have hit the over in 5 of the last 6. So you'd be thinking, why would I want to be underweight on them? Those games were 38, 37, 45, 47, and 39 combined points. So none of them really, really went off. And on the season, their games are averaging 39.6 points per game. That is 31st in the NFL. Their offense is basically, let's run the ball and hide everything from our quarterbacks. If it's Gabriel, and dear Lord, if it's Sanders, who basically like got in the game and you could tell like, oh, okay, well, there goes the upset. You and I were rooting for a Browns upset. And once Sanders came, we were like, oh no.
I think I texted you and I said, please Shador be great. And you said, he won't. And then the next play, like, it was just terrible. I do think it will be Shador, by the way. Dylan Gabriel in concussion protocol. And he had like a delayed onset of symptoms, generally speaking, that results in a little bit of a longer recovery. So I do think Shedeur is going to be the quarterback here, which means you can play the Raiders defense if you want. Obviously, the Browns defense looks great. Myles Garrett is just an absolute freak out there, man. Like, so yeah, you can play the Browns. I'm with you. This game looks nasty. I will say, however, you know who's going to be stacking this game?
Who, like, somebody's going to be stacking this game?
Josina Anderson will absolutely be playing Shedeur Sanders in her DFS lineup. Just go to our timeline if you missed it. The game I want to be underweight on is Green Bay and Minnesota. 9 has not looked good this year. And now I
will never play him again. I don't even care if what the projections say.
And now he goes on the road to Green Bay. Feels like a terrible situation. And, you know, we'll see on Josh Jacobs. I think he's probably on the wrong side of questionable this week. So you could get a cheaper option in Emmanuel Wilson or something like that, which I'm fine with. But it's more of like if you want to play a one-off from either side, cool. But I don't really want to get deep into this game. I think the total is only at 41.5.
In terms of a team that I'm confident in hitting the over their implied total, the Bengals, it's interesting. We talked about that game earlier. You brought it up between the Patriots and the Bengals. Their implied total is just 20.5. And chasing the Bengals is basically the same story. We didn't get it last week against the Steelers, but it's about passing volume and the need to score. Cincinnati at home this year is averaging 34 points per game, 45 pass attempts per game, and here's the best part, a 70% pass rate at home. That's amazing. I will also add the Patriots, the conversation right now online is their schedule. And I've seen some really great clips of people saying, did their schedule make this throw? And it's just putting their schedule over Drake May as he makes just like a sick throw. Their pass defense hasn't been squeaky clean the entire year. They've had moments. So they've allowed the 7th most passing touchdowns and the 10th highest passer rating. So I think that's a game that if you're going to buy into, I think you're buying into the Bengals at home at like a very low spot because of how they played this past week. And I think they can get over 20.5 points.
Makes sense. Yeah, defense of New England kind of invites you to throw. They've been great against the run. Joe Flacco has no issue dropping back 42 times a game. Like, it makes all the sense in the world. So the only issue is like when you replace Jamar Chase with an every down Andre Yoshivas, obviously it's not a 1-to-1 situation. So that's my only concern. But I mean, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. They also lost Milton Williams on the defensive line, which is kind of a big deal for the run defense. So we'll see on Chase Brown. But I like Detroit. I mentioned kind of over 30 points here. They go from the cold, windy conditions in Philly against the good pass rush. Now they're back home off a loss in the Dome. Dan Campbell will run it up here. So I like the Lions to put up at least 30 points.
Yeah, I'm wondering how people will handle this week, like some of the expensive options with the Lions. Like Amon-Ra is 8,000. We'll talk about salaries in a second. Gibbs is 8,300. I think Gibbs should be a popular play, but it's too early in the week to figure that out. But he's like, of all the players this week, I think he's the one that I feel like I have the most confidence in the game environment, the team total, the pricing. So it'll be interesting to see how the field handles the Lions this week. The team that I am not confident in, and I have never been confident in this team, is the Atlanta Falcons, who go on the road to face a Saints team that was on bye and away from the Benz this season. Because, you know, the Benz is just a place where the Falcons just light up. They've averaged 16 points per game. This team with Kirk Cousins, I can't even say the word under center because they do not trust him under center. It completely turtles up. So I have no confidence in the Falcons this week. And other than, like, you're basically saying with Bijan, I need to wait for the roster percentages. And you did what you did last week, which is playing him in tournaments if people aren't playing him as much as the other options. Or you were getting lucky with Mooney or Pitts. I just don't see them being a team that I want to go to.
Oh, man. I hurt for you watching the Falcons team sometimes. But just so everybody knows, I got a text from Kyle probably like midway through the third quarter. And you were like, dude, the Falcons are protecting the nest. Was the direct quote.
No. Second quarter when we were up 21-7.
That's what it was, second quarter. And then, an hour goes by. We're late in the third quarter. We start the fourth. And I'm just like, oh, Lord. I text Kyle back. I'm like, update. The Falcons are not protecting the nest. Radio silence from Kyle. I didn't hear from him for hours. So Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, I'm shocked that line is still available. I will be betting that right now. I'm also going to take the Raiders under 20.5, just going, from Dallas, which on paper was a quote-unquote good matchup. Now you get Myles Garrett and this defense, and they can rush the passer, and now you get Geno. Like, he just looks shook back there, and obviously it's going to be worse this week, I think. So Browns are 5th in yards per play. They are 6th in pressure rate. I think more bad news coming for the Raiders offense.
One of the hardest parts, some people are like, dude, your job's really cake. You get to talk about football, is comparing preseason expectations for teams and doing projections and season-long stuff to then a week in, week out, here's what can happen, because so many things change. Like with the Raiders, when you lose Colton Miller, that's not just like, oh, they lost an offensive line. That like changes the identity of how they even run the football, how they protect Geno. So I think about what we thought of the Raiders before the season. And if we would have known, hey, by the way, you're going to trade away Jacoby Myers. Bowers is going to be hurt for a little bit. Your offensive line is going to be out. It's a team that just feels like they are circling the drain, that we need to check Pete Carroll into the old folks' home. Chip Kelly, by the way, should not have a job. It's just like so many different things. And I didn't think Chip Kelly was a key piece of the team, but the Raiders have been a team that's like, oh, they could hit their win total too. Like, good Lord, do they win another game the rest of the season?
I mean, I don't know what their schedule is, but it doesn't look...
We're chasing them in Survivor, I'll tell you that.
If you have a ticket on over 5.5 and you're able to cash out, I'm like team never cash out. I've cashed out. I've cashed out. They have, let's see. So they are currently 2-8. They get the Browns this week, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Eagles, the Texans, the Giants, and the Chiefs. And the way things are trending right now, like the Chiefs usually rest their guys in week 18. They probably can't do that this year because of their record. I would cash out.
They could maybe squeeze 2 wins out of that schedule. Maybe.
Dude, it's like an interesting discussion because in fantasy, everybody was so excited about Genty because of the workload, the draft capital, and dynasty and all those things. Like in hindsight, and maybe it's not even hindsight, like drafting a running back 6th overall when your team is clearly not a contender is just, it couldn't look worse.
It has to be a luxury pick when you are taking a running back in the first round. Like, the Chargers could afford to do it. And I say that with like, they've had all the injuries to the offensive line too. So in hindsight, it looks even worse. But like, the Chargers could afford to do it based on where they were taking Hampton and the overall makeup of their team. The Raiders could not afford to do that, man.
When you start to read like NFL draft content this spring, and you look at like team needs and stuff, it's literally going to be everything for the Raiders, except tight end and running back. But
I don't know, man. Tight end, they've done it before.
You draft another one.
Oh, man. One of the things that Betz and I will do in the offseason is we do a lot of team-by-team breakdowns. We kind of look at the market. And one of the things we're doing next week on the Dynasty podcast is kind of looking at this year's draft class and where things are going. So if you're interested in that conversation, we'll talk about it on the Dynasty podcast. Like I love the team building aspect of this because really good teams take the best player available, the Buccaneers, the Eagles, and they just kind of keep churning, usable, valuable players on both sides of the ball when they already have them. Like the Eagles have enough defensive players compared to the rest of the league. They keep drafting them. The Buccaneers, in theory, they had enough wide receivers. Let's just take Igbuka and see what happens. So what do I know, though? Just a guy who, played J.J. McCarthy in cash this past week. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
My dog Max loves chewing on my favorite pair of shoes, almost as much as he loves his Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula dry dog food. Seriously, he never leaves a crumb. And I love it too, because it's made with high-quality protein, antioxidant-packed fruits, and nutrient-rich veggies. Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
'Tis the season of gifting and halls to deck, and the who's and who Newville were in love with new tech. Where can we find Sonos and Samsung and Nintendo, they shouted. Would they find it in one place? This they questioned and doubted. When suddenly a who yelled, Walmart's the place to start! And each who added headphones, TVs, and games to their carts. With Walmart, their shopping was done in a flurry. They cried out, who knew? And ordered their gifts in a hurry. Shop the latest tech gifts in the Walmart app.
Salary standouts.
So early in the week, here are some players that we want you to circle for your player pools. We mentioned earlier that Drake May is the QB1 in pricing on DraftKings. So it's nice to see Mahomes is right below him at 6.8. I do need to bring up the fact that although the Chiefs haven't felt like the Chiefs, this is a good spot for Mahomes. The Colts are allowing the 8th most passing yards per game, and opponents are throwing the ball 64% of the time. That is the highest rate in the NFL. So I do think you have an opportunity this week with Chiefs stacks, because that game has the highest total of the week, that you can double stack Mahomes knowing that the pass rate will probably be there. So I do like that, like coming off a week where they lost. I think Mahomes, despite his price, is a good play.
Yeah, probably more of a tournament, I think, conversation. I think in cash, you're going to see a ton of Jacoby this week, which why would you not? 5,300. They're chucking. It's a high total in the game. It's a good matchup against the Jaguars, so I like that. I will point out over on FanDuel, they were aggressive with Jalen Hurts' price. He is the QB1. I think it's $9K on FanDuel. If you want to get your Drake May exposure for a relative value, he's a better value on FanDuel, where he's the quarterback 3 compared to QB1 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think Jacoby is just not priced up enough, so he's going to be the easiest click. Kind of just keep going there. And we talked about the Cardinals and the Jaguars and the way that teams play. They're top 2 in combined plays per game. So that one makes a ton of sense. At running back, I need to throw it out there just to say it. Jonathan Taylor's $10K. So somebody, let's just call him Gabe in risk management. Gabe was sitting there looking at the numbers, saw that the Colts were on bye, and then said, I got to price up JTT. I feel like for a while, corporate's been on me, and I need to do this. Okay, just so you know, there's an algorithm that does this. It's not some person, but let's just say that he did. That is expensive bets. Expensive for any running back, but expensive for a running back who is a 3-point road dog. So early thoughts on a 10,000 Jonathan Taylor, which is just a shock and awe thing to see.
Yeah, and for context, he's the same price on FanDuel. And FanDuel usually is pretty aggressive with the top pricing tier, where they will make sure you have to spend up to get these guys. 10K on DraftKings is insane. When you think about what he has to do, 20 points, not going to be good enough. 25 points, probably not good enough. 30, maybe that's good enough. To truly, and I want to be careful with how I say this because it depends on the contest you're playing, but to be a piece you need in large field tournaments, he will probably have to score at least 35 DraftKings points, which granted he can do. Is very hard to do that any week. So my early lean is to probably come in pretty underweight JTT, and depending on what value we get throughout the week, maybe he comes back in cash, but I would be shocked if he's a cash play just because the price is so prohibitive.
Correct.
So yeah, that's my early take, and of course I can't wait to hate myself when JT runs for 250 and 3 this week.
Bijan is 8,500. Jahmyr Gibbs is 8,300. I think Gibbs is my early favorite in cash. Just looking at the savings, looking at the implied total, looking at the matchup against the Giants, who have been a run funnel the entire year. So Gibbs looks really good. We have Travis Etienne at 5.9 against the Cardinals. He feels like the mid-range cash play that everybody will look at and go, okay, this is the right mix. This is the right game environment, right matchup. And then do we have an update about Baishal Tootin, who exited the game this past week?
Yeah, he left with an ankle injury. I thought it was going to be pretty serious when I saw it happen, but he was on the sideline with his helmet on, so presumably he could have come back in if they called his number, but we'll see what they do with the practice reports here this week. The tricky thing with these rookies, right, is if they miss practice time, sometimes coaches will not trust them that week for like the install and the game plan. So I really like ETN regardless of if Tootin plays. If Tootin is out, I think ETN becomes a standout cash play. If Tootin is in, I like ETN a lot for tournaments because I think that'll keep his roster percentage in check.
I also want you to circle Emmanuel Wilson, who is the Packers backup running back. He saw 71% of the snaps this past week after Josh Jacobs exited. He had a touchdown. He's 5,300. So it's just as simple as you get a running back who is favored at home. Vikings have been a fairly good rush defense for most of the year, but cheap running back alert. Everybody in DFS just goes, all right, I kind of want to play him. So he's kind of the cheapie this week. We do need to wait on information about the Patriots backfield. So if Ramondre doesn't play, Travion is interesting. He is 6,700, so not as cheap as he used to be. But, I mean, Travion's been trucking, and it's against the Bengals. So those are kind of the standout running backs early in the week. At wide receiver, JSN is priced up as the top wide receiver at $9K. He's been so good, man. I just put together a thread like a true sicko of all 72 of his receptions so far this year. And watching through them again, I go, he's just good at getting open over and over and over again. So 9K is actually fine for me. I know we talked about 10K. Like 9K is fine in full PPR. It doesn't really bother me that much. Chase will be off the slate because he decided he wanted to spit. And so from there, the question is, do you want to play Amon-Ra? CeeDee Lamb is $1,000 more expensive than George Pickens. So talk about Gabe doing his job with JTT. Dude screwed the pooch when it comes to Pickens at 6,900. I think Pickens will be a popular click this week.
I think so too, especially after that huge game in primetime. I also want to throw out, I mentioned kind of at the top with the Eagles wide receivers. It's been terrible. However, they're both below 6K on DraftKings, which when you compare them, like who they're priced next to, it's like, man, if you just zoom out, like these guys are so talented. We know what they can do at their salary. So I do like both of those guys. If you want to go up a little higher, kind of below JSN, I think T. Higgins without Jamar Chase will obviously be a very, very good play. People are going to ask us about Andre Yoshivas. I don't know, man. He's kind of like Michael Wilson, right? Where it's like he's been out there a lot in his career, running around doing nothing, but he will play basically every snap, and they're going to have to throw in this game, so I get it. I don't want to play them both together, but I do think Andre Yoshivas should at least make your player pool this week.
4,100 is
it's not free.
A nice tag. Like it's fine. I mean, T. Higgins isn't cheap though. 7,100 is not as free. Like if he last week, do you remember what T. Higgins' price was?
Yeah, he was 6K.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's a big difference. So we'll wait till later in the week to see if we get some cheaper options. I think the Patriots wide receivers on the other side of the ball are interesting. If Kayshon Boutte comes back, he's 5K, more of a tournament play. I did want to bring up Matt Collins because if Boutte is out, I feel like Matt Collins has quietly been really good, and he's a podcast favorite. He's 4,200. I could see myself he's going to be invited to the party, and I'll tell you right now, he's a good time.
Dude, Mac is the man. He almost had that huge play on that Thursday night game too that kind of dropped out of his hands, but he's played very well the last 2 or 3 weeks since he's gotten more opportunities. So obviously if Boutte's in, I don't think you can go there in cash personally, but if Boutte happens to be out again, then yes, he's definitely interesting.
Do you think people will chase Michael Wilson at 4,800?
I was thinking about that, and it's like he's $1,000 more than he was last week. I could see people playing him if Marv is out again. I think Marv probably misses one more game with the appendicitis surgery. The tricky thing for me is like, do I really want to? We'll talk about Trey McBride. He's 6,800. Do I now want to play a more expensive Jacoby, a more expensive Michael Wilson, and a more expensive Trey McBride? Probably not.
All right, so you know me pretty well. We've done this for a while. Knowing my personality, knowing that Michael Wilson, what he did this past week, knowing how I feel about Michael Wilson in the past, and that he's 4,800, what will I probably do this week with him?
You will likely not play him and regret it.
That's exactly what I will do. I will dig in, and I'm not saying that's the best. Christian Watson is 4,600. He's an interesting tag. He only goes up $200 despite being the best Packers wide receiver, or at least the most trusted one. He's interesting. Jameson Williams, I need to point him out at 5,700. This is a different wide receiver over the last 3 weeks in terms of how he's used. I'm going to profile that on the Dynasty podcast. But, dude, Jameson Williams on a crosser is good stuff. I'm glad that they're figuring out that he's good at that and that they should use him that way. So he's interesting at 5,700. And then I said this probably 2 months ago. There will be a day that Chris Olave is too expensive, and the number I gave is 6,500. He's only 6,400, and he's coming off a bye. It's against the Falcons, who didn't play defense this past week. So Olave is once again invited to the player pool.
Makes a lot of sense. I wanted to ask you a question on the Falcons defense.
The answer is booty do.
I mean, I'm sure there's something going on in the huddle or the play call or whatever. I'm just watching, from my couch like a normal human. Did they have a linebacker on Ted McMillan on that last touchdown catch out of the slot?
I couldn't tell you that part right now.
I'm pretty sure they did, and it wasn't like a disguised coverage. Like, he was lined up across from him at the line of scrimmage. And I was like, this seems like a bad idea. Oh, there's a touchdown. So, I don't know, man. The Falcons defense early in the year was rolling. I think Olave is a good play.
I think it's hilarious that the Falcons have never had a pass rush. I mean, just literally ever. We brought up the statistics before. This year, they finally have a pass rush. They have 18 sacks in the last 3 games. There's been no team in the history of the league that has 18 sacks over a 3-game period and lost all 3 games. The Falcons said, hold my beer. I can do this.
Impressive.
And I know. Once they get, I'm telling you, in the meetings, it was, let's stop Rico. Let's rush the passer. And the rest of the secondary is like, oh, so what should we do in coverage? They're like, no. Don't worry about that. Just stop Rico, rush the passer. You don't have to worry about Bryce Young setting a franchise record in passing yards. Don't worry about it. Do you know a third of his wins have come against the Falcons in his career?
He's got their number.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. At tight end, is Trey McBride too expensive at 6.8?
I don't think so. Because, again, we keep talking about this in context. He's basically a wide receiver 1, and he should be priced as he is a wide receiver 1, yet because he's a tight end, they don't price him that way. So when you consider him, compared to like T. Higgins in that range or Chris Olave in that range, like he was going to project better. And the Jaguars do give up production to the tight end too, so another good matchup here on tap. So I think he's once again a very, very strong consideration. I will say on FanDuel, did you see his price over there?
No.
8,500.
Yikes.
I don't know that he'll be in play over there. I mean, certainly in tournaments, but it's more of a full PPR DraftKings play for me.
Over the last 5 games, he has over 100 fantasy points scored, which is the most of any 5-game span for a tight end over the last 5 years. So basically the run that he's been on has been unreal. Other guys that I have circled, I do have Travis Kelce circled at 5K because he's quietly been consistent, and he out-targeted Rashee Rice for the first time since Week 11 of 2023. So Kelce's at his price point in a game environment we like, I think is appropriate and somebody that you can stack up with Mahomes in a tournament. Kyle Pitts. I have to mention his name because last time we saw him without London and without Penix, he saw 9 targets. Now the Falcons got boat race, so maybe it doesn't really matter in that game. But he's at least interesting at 4,300. Any cheaper options this week you like?
I think Hunter Henry is in interesting consideration just because of the matchup. Also, shout out to Darnell Washington against these Bengals.
Oh, baby.
What a play. We lost the Jonnu over, sadly. But the process, they say, Kyle, because the Muth went over his line, Darnell went over his line. They're just giving up so much production to tight ends that Hunter Henry is interesting. It wouldn't surprise me if he comes out for like 3 for 32 because that's what these types of tight ends do. But if you are stacking that game, if you want a cheap option, just because of the matchup, I think he's interesting.
AJ Barner's 3,300. He's interesting. He had 11 targets this past week. He's kind of been the lead tight end this year over Elijah Arroyo, but just another cheap guy I needed to throw out there. Brock Wright is 3K. No team is... Brock Wright, I feel like, is always like the Thanksgiving tight end. You're like, we'll have to talk about him in next week.
He's 2,600. He could catch 2 or 3 passes.
I'm telling you, he will be the tight end on the Thanksgiving slate that said, if you need to punt it off, it's Brock Wright. You know that's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll talk about that next week. Isn't that crazy? That's next week.
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh, boy. We got a lot of plans to figure out with our family and my wife's family. I didn't realize it was next week. Now I'm stressed.
Yeah, and our schedule. We got a crazy schedule next week. All right, let's finish off at defense. I think the spend down options this week are intriguing. The Browns, we talked about them earlier. They're 2,900. It's a good spot. That game's sitting at 36.5. So if you want to go that direction, that's fine. I also think the Saints will get clicked a lot at home against Kirk Cousins and whatever the Falcons try to do on offense.
Yep, makes sense to me.
You know, the Falcons run a lot of stuff out of pistol. Sounds cool, right?
Mm-hmm. Looks cool.
It just protects our quarterbacks because we don't know what we're doing. That's all it is. Self-protective measure.
What a team. What a team, Kyle.
I bet people listening to this podcast are like, why do I have so much Falcon stuff in my life? Like, I wish I had less in my life. Last night we were watching the game, me and a couple of guys from one of our home leagues. We were watching the Cowboys Raiders game, and we were like, what are we most excited about right now? We're like, gosh, it's the Braves. We hate the Falcons right now so much.
Yet here you are. People can't see this, but here you are wearing a Falcons quarter zip. Kyle,
it's comfy.
You love that. You cannot quit this team. You love them.
I can't quit a good quarter zip.
That's fair.
Kind of like fall weather where it's like a little cold, but like I can roll up the sleeves.
I hear you.
If anybody works for a quarter zip company, you just go ahead and send one my way.
A generic quarter zip.
Yeah, just that's it. All right, Betz, sign us off.
Yes, good luck to everybody out there this week as we look forward to, what is it, week 12 already in the NFL? That's crazy, man. Good week in week 11. Hopefully we can keep it rolling this week. And I'll be back Friday to break down the main slate, props, all that good stuff. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
My dog Max loves chewing on my favorite pair of shoes, almost as much as he loves his Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula dry dog food. Seriously, he never leaves a crumb. And I love it too, because it's made with high-quality protein, antioxidant-packed fruits, and nutrient-rich veggies. Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
'Tis the season of gifting and hauls to deck, and the who's and who Newville were in love with new tech. Where can we find Sonos and Samsung and Nintendo, they shouted. Would they find it in one place? This they questioned and doubted. When suddenly a who yelled, Walmart's the place to start! And each who added headphones, TVs, and games to their carts. With Walmart, their shopping was done in a flurry. They cried out, who knew? And ordered their gifts in a hurry. Shop the latest tech gifts in the Walmart app.